Customizing metahumans within Unreal Engine has always been hard, and while with the release of Unreal Engine 5.6 it has been made easier, it's still not as easy if you really want to drastically customize your character. And so within this video, I'm going to cover a very specific topic, and I've made this a specific metahuman. This is a fully customized metahuman, and it has a lot of hard surfaces such as armor, etc. And I've made them work in ways that you don't have a lot of tutorials on how to manage hard surface armor pieces. So in this video I'm going to tell you my workflow of how I made these specific armor pieces of metahuman and how I made them work correctly. So without any further ado, let's begin. Now the very first point that I need to talk to you about metahuman customization is that if you really want to customize your metahuman drastically, try to make your own assets. And this might sound a little bit iffy, but the point is that when you make your own assets, you are able to control each and every aspect of it. For example, in this asset, I'm able to control the topology exactly the way I want. And yeah, this is not very great topology either. I'm not saying this is the best topology, but it's at least made good enough that I can make it work with my character. And at the end of the day, nobody is going to look at your topology if your character is going to be just used in a cutscene. Obviously, if you are going to make it for a video game, you have to focus on topology more. But with that said, I would still recommend make your own assets. In my case, I've completely made this metahuman from ground up. I've actually morphed the body of the metahuman as well as made the clothes custom fit with the metahuman. In case of metahuman, if you really want to make the best, customizations possible, then you ideally want to make your own assets. It's not very hard. If you are willing to look up some tutorials, then it's actually pretty easy to make armor pieces. Now, most metahuman customization tutorials that you will find online, especially the ones that cover pieces such as armor ones, are not exactly accurately telling you how to transfer the weights from the skin of the metahuman to the armor pieces itself. The thing is that if you directly follow their tutorial, you will have two issues. You will have incorrect form of the weight data transferring, and you will also have another issue of armor pieces bending where you do not want them to bend. Now here's the thing. Realistically speaking, you cannot completely avoid the bending of armor pieces. It's not, something that you can do. With that said, you can negate the bending of armor pieces by a huge margin, and I'll show you how. So most generic metahuman tutorials go like this. They will basically tell you to add a data transfer modifier to your armor piece, then select the skin of the metahuman, then select vertex data vertex groups, and they will usually keep this on nearest vertex, and this is wrong, and I'll show you why. And keeping this on nearest vertex, when you generate data layers, there is an issue that will, and once the data layers are generated, if you finally look at the weight paint of this data, the issue will be extremely evident. The issue with this type of data transfer is that this data transfer is not smooth at all. You are getting this very blocky or jagged feel with the data transfer. And this is not ideal, because if you now bend the metahuman's skin or the armor, not only will it bend in the places that you do not want like this, but it will also bend in this blocky manner. And yes, you can paint it to make it smoother, but that's going to take a lot of time because there is jagged parts everywhere, especially in case of this complex metahuman which has multiple pieces of armor. How are you going to weight paint this without wasting like a million years? So there is an easier workaround to this, and I'll show you how. So on this side of the knee, what I will do is that I will follow my method of data transfer, which is not very different. It's pretty much similar, but it has some slight changes that most people do not talk about. And they were not immediately obvious to me, so that is the reason why I'm covering this specific thing. So what you want to do is you do want to add data transfer modifier, and you still want to select the skin for the metahuman. So this whole process is going to be similar. You still will select vertex groups, but the one thing that you will do differently is that you will not select nearest vertex, you will select nearest faces interpolated. Now I've tried each and every other setting, and this works the best. What this does is that when you transfer data with this setting and generate data layers, what you will get now is a much more smoother weight painting data, and I'll show you how. So now if you look at it, the weight paint has been transferred and it is significantly smoother. Compare this to the other transfer of the weight paint, and I'll show you that one as well. You can see that there is a massive difference between the data transfer in terms of weight of that knee and this knee. This knee is extremely jagged, and it's going to be extremely jagged in almost every way and every shape possible. Like here it is also extremely jagged, whereas in my case making that small setting change, it will actually make your weight transfer significantly smoother. Like this. And this is what you want. Look at this weight data transfer. And I don't know why don't most MetaHuman tutorials use this setting. I think they might be using this, but to someone who is a beginner like me or some other people who might not be as advanced, this is not going to be extremely obvious immediately. So this is very useful. So yeah, this is how you correctly transfer data in case of MetaHumans. Now another issue that you will have even if you follow the whole settings of MetaHuman is that while the data transfer will be much significantly better if you do it the way I told you, there are still going to be issues. For example, if you transfer the data onto this armor piece directly from the skin, another issue that you will have with this is that now this has taken the data of the whole skin, but it shouldn't do that because this part of the leg should not actually influence any of this armor, but it will, because if we look in the weight paint data of this armor pieces, you will know this bone, for example, has influence on this part, and there is an easy way to fix this. So for now, if I actually bend the leg, there will be squishing of the bone and actual armor piece. The armor piece is kind of going with the bone, and that's because there is weight paint data over there. The simple way to fix this is to select this bone within the weight paint data tab and have the weight paint data also, the weight paint is also visible. Go to the data properties, and if you select this bone, the actual vertex data will be highlighted over here. You simply need to just delete that, and as you delete that, the armor will stay still. Now it is not being influenced by this bone, and so the armor will work as intended. Let's say you don't want this part of the bone to be influenced as well, because this is somehow influencing, getting influenced by this bone. We can delete that as well, and there you go, the data is gone. And so those are the ways of how you can make some of the hard parts of the armor not bent at all. Now there will be realistically some squashing near these parts, and that is going to be happening anyways, and that's fine, because realistically when you are making such hard armor pieces, especially in 3D, you cannot completely avoid the squishing of the armor. But this is something that was not told in most tutorials, and it's not extremely obvious immediately, but you can actually, you don't need to weight paint anything. You can just simply click on the bone holding Alt and just simply delete the data from over here. As you can see, I have already deleted the data of this bone, so it has no influence on the whole armor piece. Now ideally, if you are making armor pieces of, let's say, chest region, then in that case you will have to do manual work in order to actually fix the weight paint data. But in case of pieces such as this elbow piece, if I just directly transfer the data from the skin to the MetaHuman, the tricep will also influence this armor piece, and this armor piece will kind of go with the tricep. It will bend this way. But we don't want that. So what we will do is simply just click on the armor piece, go into the weight paint data, and just simply delete all the bones influencing it that we do not need. I mean, I can ideally delete this as well, because we do not want this bone to influence the armor piece anyway. But you don't really need to do that, because at the end of the day, as long as this part is being influenced, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, this is how you can do it. So like, you have the highlighted data over here, just simply delete it, and that should fix your issue for the most part. But in other cases where you have, such as I had the data for this bone, and this is going to influence some weird part of this armor, it's not showing up for now because I've already deleted it. But if you really want to just be sure about it, simply click on the negative icon and it should fix the issue regardless of how you do it. Now you can do manual weight painting as well, but that takes a lot more time. So these are some ways of how I made this MetaHuman character and how I customized it. This whole process of deleting the vertex data actually helps a lot with armor pieces such as this one. So for example, I have this, weird bracing on the armor, and this is kind of weird because you do want this to be influenced by the face, but you do not want this to completely be influenced by everything else. So let's say you have the face vertex group on, you can just simply select the bone, then select this piece, and then you can basically go into the weight paint and check which bone is influencing the pieces of this armor, and you can simply delete it from here, because that's significantly easier. And even if you do not, because in this case specifically, there is a mess of these bones, you cannot really see which bone is influencing what. So the simple way is just you can click on these parts and select the bone directly. You will still select the bone if you click over here. That works the same way. Anything that you do not want this to be influencing, you just simply click on the negative icon and it will delete it. whole deleting of the vertex data is something that wasn't shown in most MetaHuman customization tutorials, and it wasn't immediately obvious to me. I thought I might as well add this in my tips. That is how you customize some hard pieces of your MetaHuman. Tell me how you liked this video. If you did not like, or if you have any criticism, do leave that down in the comments below. I reply to almost every comment I can. And yeah, with that said, I hope you have a good one.